The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are very happy to welcome you to our webinar event, Make Fax Great Again, where we are going to talk about advanced alternatives to your legacy fax server. We're very excited to kick off a 4-day event today where we're going to explore innovative and best-of-breed solutions for your enterprise fax environment. And we are very happy to kick off this event with our friends and strategic partners at XMedius. Our speakers today, we are pleased to have Carol Waldron, our Director of Strategic Channels for XMedius, and Rich Bott, Director of Solution Engineering for XMedius. Carol and Rich are going to give us an in-depth overview of the XMedius solution and its enterprise-grade capabilities. Then I'm very happy to introduce Juan Cueva, our Director of Technical Services for Instant Info Systems. And Juan's going to talk about our expertise, our in-depth knowledge of legacy fax servers, and how we can make this transition from your legacy environment to XMedius Fax as smooth and seamless as possible. Before we dive in, I want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. You should see on the right side of your screen the GoToWebinar control panel. That's where you can ask your questions as we go along. And at the very end of the presentation, we will answer as many questions as we have time for. Rest assured, if we don't have time to get to all of your questions, we will reach out to you individually and make sure you get all of the information that you need. So really quick, just a quick overview of Instant Info Systems for those of you who are new to our webinars. We are the largest independent value-added provider of fax solutions. We represent the market's best and leading fax solutions. Of course, XMedius right there at the top of that list. And we provide a full spectrum of technical services and support to make sure your installation, implementation, all of your professional services needs are met, and of course we back all that up with absolute world-class technical support. So the team, together with our services team at Instant Info Systems and our technical experts at XMedius, we are very well versed and well experienced in helping you make a very smooth transition from your existing legacy fax server to the XMedius fax solution. So with that, I don't want to delay. I will turn it right over to my friend and colleague, Carol Waldron.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. And good morning to everybody. My name's Carol Waldron. I'm the Director of Strategic Channels for XMedius Solutions. We'll be talking about our flagship product called XMedius Fax here today. In anticipation of this call, we surveyed some of the early registrants to find out what it is you wanted to get from this call. Truth be known, we've done several webinars already in tandem with Instant Info System. This is our third. Some of you attended our previous webinars, some you haven't. Some of you are using XMedius today. Some of you are using other fax products like WriteFax today. Point being, we quickly realized we have a vast array of people on the line with us today, so we're going to try and cover all bases in a very short period of time. Bear with me, I'm going to talk quickly, and if we run a little over, I apologize. But we really want to make sure that we hit on everybody's requests. So to start off with, we're going to talk a little about who we are, XMedius Solutions, what XMedius Fax is. As the title of this webinar suggests, we want to dive into the topic of what is an enterprise-grade fax server. I think it's important that we take a look at that and how we fit into the market. Likewise, we'll be taking a look at how XMedius Fax is a little different from others on the market, and we'll use that as a jumping off point to jump into a live administrative demo that Richard Bott, our Director of Solutions Engineering, will be driving for you today. And as Julie mentioned at the top of the call, we'll be running through some QA towards the end. So today, XMedius is a company owned by a group called Stone Caliber. Truth be known, we've been in the North American markets for close to 20 years under a variety of products, manufacturing a variety of products under a variety of company names. What's unique about our product is that it was in the 2003-ish timeframe. We recognized some significant trends in the marketplace and adjusted our product strategy at that time. Meaning, that was right around the time that we started seeing voice over IP systems being adopted in a wide-scale manner in the market, and likewise, that's when virtualization hit the scene, okay? Now, like just about every other fax product on the market at that time, we had hardware dependencies. We required physical fax boards or modems or ATA devices in order to operate in these more modern environments. And we said, hey, wait a minute, this makes absolutely no sense. These hardware dependencies are cumbersome. So we went back to the drawing board, we totally rewrote our code from scratch, and when we did, we wrote and bundled into our product our own T38 protocol stack. Now, you're probably wondering why that's important, and I realize some of you are familiar with T38. For those of you who are not, T38 is essentially the protocol required in order to really reliably run faxes over a voice over IP network. Think of it as an insulation layer that wraps itself around a fax packet and protects it from loss. What's unique about XMedia's fax and something that differentiates us from everyone else in the market is that that stack is built into our software. We wrote it, we patented it, it's bundled into the product. Therefore, we don't require any physical fax boards. We don't require, for instance, dialogic version of a T38 stack called SR140. We literally are a single source solution. Okay, meaning you've got one throat to choke. You call us for support. Not only do we support the fax application itself, but also the mechanisms used to connect to the telephony. Therefore, our customer sat rates are very, very high, in the 99% range. So let's take a look at what a typical XMedius deployment looks like. And this, for the most of you, probably looks somewhat familiar to what you're doing today. The arrow on the far left is representative of your inbound phone lines, your PRIs, your SIP trunks. Maybe they're still old analog lines, although probably not. Those lines come in through your phone switch. And I want to stop here quickly and make a side note about some of the telephony, and particularly the voice over IP manufacturers with whom we interoperate. You'll see here I've noted, for instance, Avaya, Cisco, Mitel, Microsoft, ShoreTel. We go to excruciating lengths internally to maintain our interoperability certifications with these telephony vendors. Again, it's highly important to us because of that T38 stack. We want to make sure we can talk efficiently to these systems. So, as an example, we are absolutely current with our Avaya Communication Manager and IP Office certifications. We just finished certifying on the most current Mitel 5000 platform. Cisco, earlier, let me think, about 60 days ago, we finished our integration and our interoperability testing with Call Manager 11, Unity Connection 11, the BE 7011. That's a really, really core fundamental part of our business. So, again, inbound fax numbers just come in over your existing lines. They hit your PBX, and those calls, the fax calls, are routed to XMedia's fax. From there, we recognize the fax number. A fax number equals a user account in our software, and we create routing rules that say, okay, these faxes need to go to John Doe at acme.com as an example. We can route inbound faxes to an email address, to a browser-based interface, to a network printer, a folder, a network directory, you name it. Anywhere to which we have network access, we can route faxes. And the same applies in reverse. Now, I do also want to throw in a comment that a user account can be a person. It can be John Doe, absolutely, but it can also be groups of users. It can be a combination of routing methods, meaning we can route to an email address, a printer, and a network directory simultaneously without creating any kind of complex forwarding rules. So today, there are 3 versions of XMedius available. We have a Small Business Express Edition, a medium-sized Enterprise Edition. Today we'll be largely focused on the third of these. XMedius Fax SP is our enterprise-grade software system. So it's designed for unlimited users, unlimited channel capacity, and again, it's the version of our software that the vast majority of our large enterprise customers require. There are functions built into the software that are specific to the larger organizations. So what does enterprise grade mean by definition? Now, at first glance, I recognize this sounds like a fluffy marketing term, but it's not. So in our opinion, in our definition, enterprise grade means, number one, it's got to be designed to accommodate a variety of needs for both the user and the administrator. Likewise, we felt it was important when we designed the product to keep our code source very open. We can't be operating off some kind of proprietary database. Likewise, we want to be a single source, all-inclusive product, okay? Meaning one throat to choke, as I mentioned with the T38 stack. And again, it's got to be high performance regardless of the number of users, channels. It needs to be easy to use, to administrate. It should support multi-tenancy. Now, multi-tenancy can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. In our universe, it means different groups with unique requirements. And not surprisingly, enterprise grade should support the best-in-class HA and DR options. So let's take a look at what a lot of other products classify as HA and DR. Here, we're looking at WriteFax as an example. And I believe looking at the attendee list, some of you use WriteFax like this today. You have Fax Server 1 to the left and Fax Server 2 to the right. Now, you'll notice the dotted line between the two, and that's because the databases, the servers in a WriteFax deployment, in an HA deployment, cannot talk. Period. They are not true active-active. What companies like WriteFax recommend is that you offload the fax images to something like an external SAN or NAS, as denoted by the bubble at the top. Below, you'll see a couple of SQL servers. That's where companies like WriteFax recommend that you offload the metadata associated with your faxes. In high-usage environments, they also recommend offloading the fax drivers, what they call RDTs, to yet again peripheral servers. You can see that there are minimally 5 peripheral servers required and a lot of possible points of failure. In our opinion, this is a workaround for an aging product. This is not a strategy. Going back to my comments that our code source is more current and that we wrote and rewrote our code several times to come up with our enterprise grade strategy. This is what HA looks like in an XMedius universe, okay? You have Fax Server 1 to the left, Fax Server 2 to the right. You'll notice here, though, the line between the two is solid, meaning our databases replicate in real time. With 2 servers without any peripherals, all the services are shared between the 2 servers. The channels are shared. The channels can float. We don't require any kind of SQL, SAN, NAS. Our servers truly replicate in real time, offering you what you should expect from a fax vendor when you're looking for an enterprise class HA solution. So before we jump into the demo, I wanted to hit on a couple of new features. These are features that some of you asked us about and we wanted to touch on. The first of these is our new mobility apps, I should say. These are apps that are free for download from the Apple Store, also Google Play. They support the Apple operating system, so iPads, iPhones. We also, within the last few months, released Android support. You know, I think we all have come to recognize that work is an activity, not a location, and we therefore need to make fax available for you wherever you may be. And that's exactly what this mobile app does. Not only does it give you the ability to send and receive faxes from a mobile device, but it gives you the flexibility of selecting cover sheets, delayed faxing, phone books, so on and so forth. Another improvement in our product line within the last few months are the advent of our new healthcare connectors. I know that we have a lot of healthcare-related folks on the line, so I quickly wanted to touch on some of the improvements in our products. Number one, in the first half of the year, we released connectors specific to the EHR systems, Epic, Allscripts, and NextGen. Before the end of the year, we will also be supporting and offering connectors for McKesson and Cerner. That said, we absolutely want to keep the conversation going. As we move into 2017, we will continue development in this arena. If there's something you need that we do not offer, simply reach out to Instant Info Systems. They'll convey the message, and truth be known, we will get on it. Now, I want to take a dive into enterprise fax administration tools. And in a moment here, I'm going to hand off the ball to Rich Bott, our Director of Solutions Engineering. I think it's important to recognize that the SP edition of our software was originally written for a very large service provider, ergo the term SP. They came to us and said, we want to use your gear on the back end. How do we do this? Build us a product that's going to support multi-tenancy. And ultimately, that's exactly what we ended up with today. A product that's enterprise grade, that supports multi-tenancy. The product and the administrative tools are built on the concept of sites. Now, sites in our universe are not physical locations. Okay, these are not buildings, departments, they're just logical groupings of users. And for some of you using current fax products, other fax products today, sites are somewhat synonymous with work groups. I just wanted to clarify that before I toss the ball over to Rich here. So I am going to do just that. Toss the ball over to Rich Bott, who's going to take a deep dive and a live dive into the XMedius Fax Administrative Interface to give you an idea of what the enterprise class features are. Rich, you've got the ball, I think.
Thank you, Carol. I believe my screen is up for you now. And just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, we have an Xmedius fax server running on my laptop here in a virtual environment that gives me all of the flexibility and capability to show you what it's like to administer the particular system. The first thing that I wanted to start out with is just to show you a quick interface. This is our web administration interface, and we have different tabs here with sites, system monitor, phone books. The information in this web administration is also available in our MMC. The Microsoft Snap-in allows for administration of the system the same way that our web administration does. I typically tend to show the MMC because there's less lag waiting for web pages to open up when we're showing this over the web. So I just wanted to start here with what Carol was mentioning. Our sites, as Carol mentioned, sites are what we come to term with as groups of users or groups of systems. But a site can also be its own little fax server. So for example, if I have Xmedius here, I have all of my configuration settings, and then I have the Acme company up here. I'm going to have a completely different set of administration and configuration settings. So I can have my own administrators within the system for Xmedius. If I go in and I look at Bob, I can check the properties of Bob, and I can control what features that Bob has. So if I want to create a, let's say, a manager login for administrative purposes, I can strip a lot of the permissions away that would allow Bob to go in and make changes to, things like Python scripts, notification profiles, and all of those fancier features, and just give the capability for, let's say, changing cover sheets, maybe phone numbers, that they can change which phone numbers get restricted. And I can also go down and let them change phone books monitoring, and they don't need any of the extra access. So it's really a true multi-tier administrator, because we're going to have system administrators that have access to all of the different sites. But when Bob logs in, he's only going to see the Xmedius site. So all of these abilities are going to be restricted inside of the Xmedius site, but he won't even know that the Acme site exists. So it's really a true multi-tiered administrative capability by allowing an overall administrator to create different administrative interfaces. And I could create an administrator with full rights under Xmedius, which they can go in and do anything they would need to that you would normally do with the fax server. And then I can create an Acme administrator over here and give them the same capabilities. But Acme will never be able to touch Xmedius, and Xmedius would never be able to touch Acme. So it's just one way that we keep things a little bit separated in the system, but also gives you groups of users that you can set different functionalities to. So if we look at the Xmedius, we have quality of service. Quality of service says that, if we have 48 channels on our fax system, we could dedicate 4 or 8 or 10 to this particular site, and they will always be available to that site. So you can give a quality of service to those different locations. So if you have an HR department and you want to keep all your faxes separate, but you need to make sure that you always have 2 or 3 or 4 lines for inbound so they can receive HR information, new applications and things, they can do so. They also would have different deletion policies. So you can set different deletion policies on the system itself, and you can label them, whether it's inbound, outbound records, whether they're incoming, where we just want to keep the fax record, but we don't want to keep the images themselves, or we want to keep all that information. Of course, we also integrate with all of your doc management systems so that we can drop all of these faxes to multiple destinations. So when a fax comes in, it can go into your user mailbox, but we can also drop a copy of it off to your doc management system for processing and keep a copy in the web client. So you have the ability to really deliver those faxes to multiple locations for any one particular fax number that you have. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was this profiles here. The profiles also allow you to break things down from a user by user group. So you have an organization that has a bunch of users, but not everybody uses the same functions the same way. So you may want to list different cover sheets. So you can create profiles. So, the HR department, if you just want to put them in their own department instead of their own site, they can have different cover sheets. They can have different phone books. They can have different billing codes. So you can set those different functions up on your profile basis, and then you can have separate fax environments with the site configuration. So again, we're dealing with that true multi-tier capability here within the XMedius Fax product. Again, we also have monitoring capabilities, and monitoring is the inbound and outbound history of all the faxes that have gone through the system. It's only going to show in the XMedius monitoring what's done in the XMedius environment, and Acme will have its own set of monitoring capabilities. The same with the system monitoring overall. The inbound history and the outbound history is going to be all of the fax server in general, and the monitor in the XMedius will only show you XMedius information. So it does keep that information separate, but you do have an overall system view so that you can view all of that information as necessary. And one of the other pieces that I wanted to talk about was our driver, our fax driver. And this is really the communication essence between your telephony system and the XMedius fax server. As Carol mentioned, we do support T38. We also support G711 for compatibility's sake. You'll notice here that we have SIP sessions. We can highlight SIP security. We deal with some of those SIP trunk providers that require SIP security, so you have to have a username and password to be able to log into your SIP session. One of the reasons we support the older G711 protocol for fax is not every SIP trunk provider does support T38 in a reliable format. So we can use G711, which is a little bit of a bulkier protocol, but still get a reliable communication from your SIP trunk provider directly to the fax server for those fax calls. The other things that we do here is you have dial plans, which allows you to set up different gateways within your system so that you can do those least cost routing options. And as Carol mentioned, we also do network captures, which you can enable. And the network capture just logs all of the communication between the fax server and your telephony system. So if there are any problems whatsoever, you can go in, capture a log file, and you get the breakdown of the communication between your telephony system and the fax server so that you can troubleshoot those and pull them up in maybe like a Wireshark utility or something and track the detail of what's going on with that communication. The other thing that you'll notice, and I shouldn't have closed that, is on this very front page, we have the ability of the number of channels. The number of channels that we have is what the overall system can handle. And then down here in our VoIP channel configuration, we have number of channels and preferred channels. If you're on a single server environment and you have a 24-channel system, all 24 channels are going to run at that location. If you're running in a high available solution, you might have a 24-channel system, but you may run 12 at one location or on one server and 12 on another server to maximize your 24 channels to get throughput on both systems. But the benefit of being able to do this is if server A goes down and it's running 12 channels and server B is currently running 12 channels, server B will recognize that server A is offline and immediately look at the preferred number of channels versus the maximum number. And it'll allow itself to bump up to 24 current connections. So that means that a system, when you're running 12 and 12, is 24 for the total system, always stays at 24 whenever connections are being made to it. So from here, we also have things like directories integrations. We have the ability to connect to Active Directory, to LDAP sources, and many other things. We make connections for site lookup tables so that we can route everything properly for your phone numbers that come through. And as I mentioned, we do have the least cost routing, deletion policies, reports. We do have tons of reports that are in the system. There's like 29 canned reports that give you access to all of the information that you would need. And if you want to, we even communicate to most of your Microsoft products, and we have the ability to work with MMS for reporting. We do support SMTP delivery in those notifications and very other points of presence as far as enterprise-wide connections for monitoring. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Carol
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. If you can toss me the ball, that would be super. So, as I mentioned, in anticipation of today's webinar, a lot of you reached out to us proactively and said, hey, I'm going to be attending the webinar. Here's what I'd like to know, right? I'd like to know A, B, C, and D. And it came to our attention that a lot of you, probably 50% or more of you, are current RightFax customers. And therefore, you wanted to spend a little bit of time discussing your options, given that, again, a lot of you have been running RightFax for 10, 15, 20 years. So I have to digress into a little anecdote. In response to some changes going on in the market, we've been conducting some focus groups with RightFax users such as yourselves. And we've been demoing our technology, our HA solutions, to the very, very large RightFax customers. And really, overwhelmingly, the response has been fantastic. People have said, oh my gosh, your technology is fantastic. This is exactly what we've been trying to get companies like RightFax to do for years. And then, oddly, a lot of those folks went quiet on us. They went dark. And we said, well, this is strange. They love our stuff. I don't understand. And so a couple of folks reached back out to me and said, Carol, what's great is this. The end result, the technology you've developed is fantastic. But what you've failed to recognize and failed to address is the migration path. How do I get from this old legacy RightFax server over here onto your platform today? And that's when the light bulb went off. And we said, okay, I got it now. Because a lot of you need to maintain, for instance, data that has lived on your RightFax servers for 10 years. So one of the products that we developed in response to your request is a RightFax database migration tool. As the name implies, it gives you the ability to migrate your RightFax data, your fax images, and your fax histories over to the XMedius Fax platform. Likewise, too, we've developed what we call the RightFax Integration Converter. This is a module that will help those of you who have spent countless hours fax enabling your back-end systems into migrating those integrations over to XMedius Fax. Essentially, we have taken a mass set of RightFax commands, regardless of whether we're talking about FCLs, embedded codes, PostScript, XML, whatever they may be. We've mapped them to like commands in XMedius Fax. So again, in an enterprise environment, it's very common that you want to fax enable those high-end back-end systems using some kind of codes. These mapping tools will allow you to do just that without having to modify the output coming off the back-end systems. Two, a number of you have reached out to us and said, well, I've got another 14 months left on my RightFax support. I'm not crazy about the product, but I'm going to stick with it until the expiration of my support plan. If you're interested in migrating today, reach out to Instant Info Systems. We've made provisions so that if you want to purchase XMedius today, we'll tack any remaining months on your RightFax support plan to the XMedius Fax support plan of your choosing. So here to elaborate on that, I'm going to introduce Juan Cueva. He's the Director of Technical Services for Instant Info Systems, and I want to turn it over to him so that he can tell us a little more about the offerings and the migrations available through Instant Info.
Excellent, Carol. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Again, Juan Cueva, Director of Technical Services, and I'm going to be doing an overview of the transition services that we've put together. Many of you that we saw on the list have worked with Instant Info Systems in the past. Some of you are new to Instant Info Systems as well. So as Carol mentioned, there's a variety of folks on the line. So I just wanted to provide a quick overview of the services that we offer at Instant Info Systems. At Instant Info Systems, we really have a niche in the fax, and we've built our services around that and our solutions. Starting from the pre-sales process, we work with our customers and our prospects to really take a look at their environment, take a look at what's important to them, what are the different pieces and considerations that they need to take a look at, and determine what architecture best fits their needs. And that's really the important piece that we found. And being able to provide that from the pre-sale side prior to moving into a professional services type of engagement has really allowed us to help the customers make the right choice. It really has been a breath of fresh air working with the different partners today who have the best interest of the customer in mind, as XMedius does, and some of the other partners that we partner with. But with our professional services, we've really worked with the customer and basically handhold them through the process of that migration. As Carol mentioned, we have some tools that we've partnered with XMedius on to develop, and they've really engaged in the professional services side. With that engagement, we're able to help you migrate. What are the real considerations? Here with Instant Info Systems, as you can see here, we really invest in our team, both from a technical services standpoint and from a sales standpoint. We have many of our folks have been with Instant Info Systems for a long time. Just as an example, I've actually been with Instant Info Systems for over 20 years and have really adopted to the multiple solutions that we have, offering the solutions that match to your environment. We keep our technical certifications as a Microsoft certified partner, for example, around Windows, Microsoft SQL, Exchange, the different Cisco environments and different integration points. Our sales team has a large depth of knowledge around the different solutions and architectures, around what are the different integrations between healthcare applications, financial applications, all of the different applications that really integrate into the ultimate solution here with fax, which is the delivery standpoint. Carol, if you can. So with Instant Info Systems, we've developed these transition services, which basically is a methodology that covers what we've done for a very long time with our project implementations, which really involves discovery, what the user directories are. What does that really mean? How are the users really connecting? How are the users configured? And then data migration. What are the different steps that we need to take in the considerations as well as the integrations? So let me dive into each of these. With discovery, there are very important points here to basically make a seamless transition with your users. What is important for those users? Into the discovery, we take a look at, for example, FaxUtil. What are users doing? Are they just routing to email? Are they working within the application to have delegates look into one mailbox? What are the routing settings? What are the group settings and permissions? We took a look at this, and as Rich mentioned, we have a lot of capabilities within the XMedius application where you can have multi-tenancy. That's been one of the areas that a lot of customers have come to us, particularly when you're taking a look at mergers in companies and how you want to consolidate into one system and one environment. Phone books, how are users using phone books? The DID setup. One particular strength here in the XMedius application is that you don't have to have just one particular DID, go to one destination, but you can have multiple destinations for one particular DID. Billing codes, for example, if you're using that for billing purposes on the back end, reporting capabilities. Rich demonstrated how we can have dialing rules and destination tables. And what are the really important pieces there? Within user directories, what are the users really doing? And how can we help you to transition these services? So we have many capabilities and have evaluated with many customers that we've helped transition over in saying, what do we have to do? Well, we may just be able to export and import those users through a CSV file. However, we may be able to take advantage and take a look at it. If you're doing Active Directory integration today, we'll map it over and do the Active Directory integration with the XMedius solution. Network directory routing. What are we doing? Where are the jobs actually going? Because really you have to take a look at where do those faxes need to go to and what's the destination? How does it really integrate to the end user application or where the user really needs to see that important document? Next here we have data migration. This is a very important question that we've been reviewing with customers. The importance, yes, we have a tool that XMedius has put together for the being able to migrate that data, but also really evaluating from a compliance standpoint, do we really need to move over that data? Or does that data need to be on the fax server, or does it really need to be somewhere else? So evaluating that and taking a look at where the data needs to go to is definitely something that we can work with you on. Evaluate the aging of the faxes. We've worked with a lot of customers that say, oh yeah, we do need to migrate data, but once we take a look at the actual aging parameters, we may only be keeping the faxes on the existing fax server for only 30 days, for example. So in that case, it may just make sense to let the faxes age out in that particular environment. Additional considerations is, do we keep those faxes in that old solution for a certain period of time? Do we migrate the data, or does it actually have to go to a different location an ECM type of application where the fax really needs to stay for archiving purposes. Go ahead and go to the integrations. What are the multiple integration points? This is where it's really important. If you're just using WriteFax or any other solution today for desktop faxing, that's a very simple transition. But really where we have to go a little further in depth is the integrations. What are the multiple integration points that we have into the existing solution? And can we actually do a better job of integrating to those? As Carol mentioned, we do have the WriteFax integration converter for embedded codes, FCL, XML. But more importantly is, what's the newest version of Epic or NextGen, and can we integrate to that? What is the particular integration like MFPs? And in the evolution of the different MFPs, what are the different integration points? Can we just integrate with SMTP, or can we do the multiple integrations like through eCopy for ShareScan, Ricoh, Sharp, Xerox, for example? And those are the integration points. As Carol mentioned, we do have some very specific healthcare connections that have been built. But in addition to that, there are web services APIs that are available, or these converter applications. And that's where Instant Infosystems can work with you to really determine what the integration points are and how we can integrate to those in these newer applications. Okay, the next slide. Telephony. Telephony, Rich covered, and Carol as well, what the different options are. But considerations are, we work with this today even in going from application to application. Let's say, for example, your existing solution is running either on a very old Windows 2003 server or 2008. As we move operating systems, we always have to consider, if you're not on the virtual environment today, how we're going to move from a physical solution with boards to the new solution with FOIP, which is fax over IP. With Xmedias, they have their own stack of fax over IP. We're able to integrate with the multiple integrations, SIP integrations that we have as well, with telephony integrations, with the certifications. One very nice piece about Xmedias that other solutions have tried to do but have not done successfully is the channel float. So that if you do have a high availability, how do you take that and basically float the channel so that if one system is down, you're able to utilize the same capacity on the second system? So Rich demonstrated how we're able to do that. So those are some of the telephony integration considerations. In the next slide here, we're going to just do a quick overview of how Instant Infosystems can help you. As I mentioned, we have a large breadth of knowledge on the WriteFax side. We're actually working with a lot of customers who are still basically providing best effort support and overlay support for WriteFax. Why do we do that? Is because we're able to provide the low hold times. We're able to work with the customer right away from our support standpoint. We bring a lot of knowledge and expertise on the WriteFax side. In the consideration of new applications, we're able to work with you not only on the new integration and application with the new application knowledge, but we're also able to help you really do the discovery of what you're doing today with your WriteFax environment, since we have that knowledge. Migration expertise, we've helped multiple customers migrate over, taking some of the considerations that we talked about. And then from a service and support standpoint, we're able to leverage and provide that gap so that we help you. We build systems side by side, and then basically migrate the users when it's the right time. And we're there to support you on the back end from a post-installation standpoint. So really our goal is to make this transition as easy and seamless as possible for you. So with that said, we're going to go over to the Q&A session. And Julie, I'll let you moderate that session.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Juan and Carol and Rich. Thank you so much. So much great information and a really great in-depth demo, Rich. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate everybody hanging in there with us. I know we ran just a few minutes over schedule, and I do see quite a bit of questions that have queued up here. So we're going to spend a few extra minutes going through these questions, but rest assured, as I mentioned, we will get back to each of you individually if your specific question does not get answered today. So I'm going to start with this one. Do you integrate with Xerox, and if so, how is it different from other fax servers? Carol, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. I saw some questions, multiple, roll in about Xerox, not surprisingly, because we do have some enterprise-class customers on the line with us, and Xerox is quite dominant in that space. So we do, in fact, manufacture connectors, if you want to call them that, specific to different MSP manufacturers, one of which is Xerox. We have a very, very tight relationship with them, and we've gone into the development labs to jointly develop products and solutions for our joint and mutual customers. So today, we offer connectors that integrate with what Xerox calls EIP, their Extended Interface Application, which is software that runs on the device. We also have what's called a ConnectKey app. ConnectKey is kind of Xerox's version of the Apple Store, where you can jump online, download applications directly onto the devices. We integrate with both. So as an example, you can download our ConnectKey app, download XMedia's fax onto these devices, connect these devices via IP back to the fax server. No analog lines required, and we extend things like phone books, cover sheets, user authentication, so on and so forth onto those devices. And there's a feature that's unique to us that might be of interest to you. It's essentially follow me printing, which means as print jobs come into the Xerox queue, we wait until a user authenticates at the device to download, retrieve, and print those documents. So that's just a few examples. If you need additional information, you can of course reach out to us directly and we can go through something more in depth for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Here's another one for you, or possibly for Rich. Can you host SIP trunks in the cost, or does the user use all of their available fax lines to connect into it?
I'm going to let Rich take that one. I think we're talking about SIP on the back end, meaning coming into the switch.
Yeah, so SIP, when we talk about SIP trunks, typically we're talking about your telephony provider providing telephony services over SIP trunks as opposed to the traditional PRIs, which are like T1s or PRI trunk systems that come in. We handle fax over IP using SIP, or we do also support H.323, and we can do that over T38 or G711. So we have a variety of products and offerings that can make compatibility much higher when it comes to SIP trunk providers that don't support that T38 end-to-end. Now, some of the larger players like the AT&T and Verizon, we've done testing with T38, everything works fine. But some of the smaller players in the markets and some of those that sell services off of some of your larger providers don't support that T38 end-to-end. So we use the G711 protocol in those environments to bring those in, and that all uses SIP communications directly to the fax server, either from your carrier gateways or from your local equipment that the carrier puts on premise. So either one is perfectly fine from our perspective.
Great. Thanks, Rich. What is the minimum server requirement for HA?
So your minimum requirements for HA really goes along with the minimum server requirements for our software. So you'll need 2 systems. So either those can be physical hardware servers or they can be 2 virtual servers. We support VMware, Hyper-V, Zen server, so we're very flexible as far as the operating system goes for those. It's just a Windows installation on either the physical or the VM or the virtual server. And then you just need, depending on how many channels you have, you'll need some processor. And we can outline those for you through the pre-sales functions, and Instant Info can provide that. Or we list them in our installation guide. So for example, 300 channels of fax on one particular system would need 4 processors at 2.4 gigahertz with like 8 gig of memory. So they're pretty modest, but we can figure that out specifically for your solution depending on how many channels you're running.
Perfect. Thank you. Here's a question about a migration. I think, Juan, you might be able to take this one. I am considering moving from WriteFax. How long is the implementation process to XMedius, and how do I ensure there's no downtime of my WriteFax environment during that transition? Sounds like a migration question for you, Juan.
Yeah, absolutely. As I briefly mentioned, the important piece, it kind of depends on the number of integrations that you may have, but the important piece is that we can build these systems side by side, even taking advantage, for example, of the support promotion that we were talking about here, where we're able to cover your both systems. But really, by building them side by side, testing all those integrations, and then basically doing a seamless transition, we're able to work with you and basically have no downtime really for the end users.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, I'm going to take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Here's one. Are you able to send received faxes into document storage apps like Laserfish? Carol or Rich?
Yeah, I'll be glad to handle that one. When you're talking about dropping faxes off from the inbound routing, we support many different platforms, and we also provide all of the metadata in a customizable XML format, so you can really even modify the output of our product to match whatever application process that you're working with. So whether it's a document management system, whether it's a workflow engine or anything like that, we can provide the images as well as the metadata that goes with it for the routing purposes and for the archiving purposes.
Perfect. Okay, one more question that has just come in. We'll try to sneak this one in before we wrap up. Do you provide telco numbers as well, or is it all up to the client, and can they be included in a monthly cost? Well, that's another one I think for Rich or Carol.
Sure. So no, we don't provide telco numbers for our on-premise solutions. We do have cloud-based solutions that you can reach out to Instant Info about. But in an on-premise installation, the telephony is at the discretion of our customers.
Perfect. I think that's exactly what they were looking for. Okay, so we are at the 10:48 mark. I really appreciate everybody hanging in there. I can see from our attendee count you guys have all stuck with us, and we appreciate it. Hopefully we've provided some useful and valuable information for you today. And as I mentioned before, if there were any more questions that didn't get answered, we will reach out to you directly and make sure you get that information. We will also provide a link to the recorded webinar, and you'll have that available to you shortly. So I would like again to thank our presenters today, Carol Waldron and Richard Bott from XMedius and Juan Cueva from Instant Info Systems. Thank you so much for a great presentation. And thank you to all of our attendees for your time today. We really appreciate it. Have a great day.